Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees. Tonight's top story. MPs pass a motion to renew the Coronavirus Act, but this version loses some of the more controversial measures like detaining potentially infectious people. Also tonight, English football fans are banned from the next UEFA home game as punishment for chaotic scenes at the Euro 2020 final. And with COP26 fast approaching, the government announces billions in green tech investments, including a multi-million-pound partnership with Bill Gates. MPs pass a motion to renew the Coronavirus Act. This time around, the Act won't include what many critics see as more draconian powers, like detaining potentially infectious people, closing down gatherings and shutting schools. But there are concerns the Act wasn't scrutinised enough. Here's NTD's Welle with more.
The motion to renew the Coronavirus Act passing in Parliament.
As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no.
Aye. Aye.
Could I have the noes again?
No.
I'm afraid, I fear, the mood of the House is not to have a vote on this. I do understand. I think the honourable gentleman would have to rustle up a few more people to really get the sense that we required a vote when we do.
She'll live by faith.
I'm sure they will. So I think the ayes have it, the ayes. Thank you.
This is the third time MPs are voting on extending the Coronavirus Act, which is voted on every 6 months. This time around, though, some of the more controversial parts of the Act, like detaining infectious people and closing down gatherings, aren't up for renewal.
Some of the provisions we're recommending to expire are some of the most stringent aspects of the Coronavirus Act. These include Section 51 relating to potentially infectious persons, which has only been used 10 times and not since October 2020.
Powers under the Coronavirus Act weren't used to implement lockdowns which come under the Public Health Act. MP Steve Baker is campaigning for a new Health Act and said the Conservatives need a change of heart.
There's only one party, with the possible exception of the Lib Dems on occasion, that can really be a party of government that stands for freedom, and that's the Conservative Party. And great respect to my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State. He's a great man who believes in liberty. But it's going to be very difficult for all people who stayed in the Cabinet and took these decisions to say that they stand for freedom in the years ahead.
Concerns echoed by David Davis.
Families being unable to hold the hands of their loved ones. Dog walkers in Derbyshire being embarrassed. People being told, being stopped because they had coffee on a walk in the park. Shocking. This is not the sort of thing that is policing by consent in the United Kingdom.
Ask for different aspects of this Act.
Labour didn't oppose the renewal of the Act, but like many, the Shadow Secretary said it needs more scrutiny.
I anticipate that 18 months later that this Act would continue to be renewed on the basis of a 90-minute debate, not allowing members to scrutinise it properly.
The Health Secretary saying he expects more pressure as the country heads into winter, and that any COVID pass proposal will be brought forward to MPs for a debate. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
English football fans are banned from the next UEFA home game as punishment for crowd trouble during the Euro 2020 final. Fans without tickets breached security cordons, fighting with stewards and police at Wembley when England faced Italy. England fans have to behave for the next 2 years or a second game will be played behind closed doors. NTD's Eddie Aiken has the story.
The England football team have been ordered to play their next home game without fans as punishment for disturbances during the Euro 2020 final against Italy. The ban applies only to European competitions, not World Cup qualifiers. UEFA said in a statement the ban on fans at the second game has been suspended for 2 years. That means if English fans don't behave over the next 2 years, they will be banned from one more game. England's Football Association has been fined £84,000. The FA says in a statement, "Although we are disappointed with the verdict, we acknowledge the outcome of this UEFA decision." They also condemn the behaviour of some fans and are determined this can never be repeated. The Euro 2020 final on July the 11th was marred by clashes between supporters and officials at Wembley, with ticketless fans breaching security cordons. It was England's first appearance in a major final since 1966. The FA is facing 4 other charges: the lack of order and discipline inside and around the stadium, the invasion of the field of play, throwing of objects and disturbances during national anthems. It has commissioned an independent review to look into the disturbances. Home Office figures showed 39 people were arrested at the Italy match. Police said 19 officers were injured. The FA was fined £25,000 earlier in the tournament after a laser pointer was shown at the Danish goalkeeper during England's semi-final victory, also at Wembley. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Today, the UK government hosted the Global Investment Summit to show how Britain can shape the future of green technology, coming in the lead up to the COP26 climate change conference in November. 12 of the UK's leading green innovators showcased their technology to some of the world's most high-profile investors. Prime Minister Johnson announced billions in investments, including a partnership with Microsoft's co-founder. NTD's Malcolm Hudson has this report.
Speaking at the Global Investment Summit in London, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates announced a £400 million partnership to boost green technologies. They said the aim is to bring down the cost of green tech to help countries achieve net zero emission targets by 2050. Gates made the commitment through his Breakthrough Energy Catalyst initiative, which brings together private investors who want to back innovation to tackle climate change.
We'll be funding these projects jointly next year. The UK's already got a number of applications coming in. We have lots of small companies that are inventing better technology for doing these things. So over the next 5-year period, we expect at least one of these technologies will be ready to scale, and over the next decade that all of them will be.
Johnson noted a number of areas they wanted to focus on.
What we want to support is direct air capture, long-term battery life, jet zero, and green hydrogen. I think these are all technologies that have massive potential, but they're currently underinvested in by comparison with some others.
Direct air capture is technology that captures CO2 directly from the atmosphere. Jet zero is the goal of net zero emission aviation through sustainable fuels. And green hydrogen is a way to store energy from renewable sources.
Now, what government has to do is as far as we can, de-risk those investments, not just in the UK, but around the world. And that's going to be, I think that's going to be the secret of COP, to be absolutely frank, and for tackling climate change in the future.
At the summit, 12 of the UK's leading green innovators demonstrated their technology to international investors. The government said it has attracted nearly £10 billion to fund its green regeneration agenda. It estimates these investments will create 30,000 new jobs. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
A former data scientist for Facebook testified before Parliament on Monday. She spoke during a meeting about the draft online safety bill that aims to impose a duty of care on social media companies. The former employee gave her views on Facebook's role in promoting extreme ideas. This story comes from NTD's Joy Duguid.
Former Facebook employee Sophie Zhang testified remotely before the Online Safety Bill Committee in Parliament on Monday. Zhang was a data scientist at Facebook but was fired in 2020. At the company, she dealt with spam content and rooting out inauthentic activity. The chair of the committee asked Zhang about the role of Facebook in amplifying extreme ideas. He said this was particularly significant following Friday's fatal stabbing of Member of Parliament Sir David Amess. Police said the murder suspect has a potential motivation linked to Islamic extremism.
Do you believe that the way the platform works at the moment is that it tends to radicalise opinion? It promotes extremist ideas, whether through organic posting, buildings of people creating inauthentic campaigns or bot accounts, but they are being used to create divisions in societies, to undermine those societies, and to allow the distribution on an unnaturally large scale of extreme ideas.
Zhang said the perception that inauthentic accounts spread misinformation or harmful content is wrong, but that most content deemed harmful is spread by real people. She criticised the tech giant's approach in tackling so-called hate speech and misinformation.
It's that the companies focus on driving down the total volume of hate speech is not necessarily the way to go.
Zhang said that the risk from hate speech is that some people will see it very often and become radicalised by it. She said the focus could instead be on preventing this content being seen by people on a daily basis.
You think that's technically easy for them to do, rather than looking at hate speech as a total thing to say we can identify people who are heavy consumers of hate speech and maybe being radicalised by it? You think that's something that they've got the technical capability to do?
I think they probably have the technical capability to do it, for instance, in English. If they have the technical capability to do it in every language, that seems a bit unlikely to me, although they could increase it very quickly.
The online safety bill, published as a draft in May 2021, would require social media platforms like Facebook to remove such harmful content. This can include content that is legal but still judged to be harmful. Critics of the bill say that it gives tech giants too much power to censor and could be applied to content that sites deem not politically correct. Joy Dugid, NTD News.
In Greece, the Olympic flame was officially handed over to China on Tuesday without incident after protests disrupted the lighting ceremony the day before. Rights groups and lawmakers are calling on the International Olympic Committee to postpone the Games unless China ends what the House of Commons and others deem an ongoing genocide in its Xinjiang region. NTD's Lily Joel has more on this.
The International Olympic Committee handed over the Olympic flame to China on Tuesday at a ceremony in Greece. Human rights activists call on governments, sponsors and athletes to boycott the Beijing Winter Games next year. They accuse the committee of granting legitimacy to a regime that commits genocide.
Currently, as we stand here, millions of Uyghurs are suffering in concentration camps in the 21st century, where they're subjected to torture, sexual abuse, including rape, maltreatment, and surveillance, forced separation of families, forced labor.
The House of Commons and the US government deemed the treatment of Uyghurs and other minorities in the Xinjiang region a genocide. The Chinese regime keeps over 1 million people in detention camps there.
So for the international community to engage with the IOC on this plan to host a Winter Olympics in Beijing is completely unconscionable. Any human around the world, part of the international community, should take a stand together and say that genocide, it is a red line for us.
The flame handover ceremony on Tuesday was held without spectators at a stadium in Athens. But on Monday, 3 activists were detained after they managed to enter a sealed-off area and disrupt the flame lighting ceremony. The Beijing Winter Olympics are scheduled to begin in February. Only spectators from mainland China will be allowed to attend. The International Olympic Committee says the Games must be respected as politically neutral ground. Lily Zhou, NTD News.
Drone footage shot on Sunday gives a unique view of what the statue Horatio Nelson sees from London's Trafalgar Square. Erected in 1843, Nelson's column is one of the city's most famous landmarks. Commemorating Nelson's victory over the French at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, the statue stands at approximately 170 feet high. From the early Industrial Revolution to the age of the Internet, it has watched over a spectacular transformation of London's skyline. Behind the statue is the digital heart of the city, the telecom tower, and the City of London to its left. The city eagerly awaits the return of the millions of tourists who contribute almost £2 billion to the country's economy and keep 20,000 people in jobs. Still to come, the EU's top official and the Polish Prime Minister lock horns in a European Parliament debate. The European Commission President threatens Poland with consequences after its top court ruled that Polish laws take precedence over EU laws. That and more after the break. In Strasbourg's European Parliament, the EU's top official locked horns with Poland's Prime Minister over a Polish court ruling. The European Commission President outlined consequences facing Poland, including a suspension of voting rights, with the Polish Prime Minister responding that blackmail must not be a part of policy making. Here's NTD's Joy Duguid with more.
The President of the European Commission clashes with the Polish Prime Minister in European Parliament on Tuesday. Ursula von der Leyen says she's deeply concerned by Poland's Constitutional Court's ruling that the country's laws take precedence over the EU laws.
The rule of law is the glue that binds our union together. It is the foundation of our unity. It is essential for the protection of the values on which our union is founded. Honourable members, we cannot and we will not allow our common values to be put at risk. The Commission will act.
She lists 3 potential consequences, including continuing to hold up Poland's access to the EU Pandemic Recovery Fund and suspending payments of EU money to Poland. More seriously, Poland's voting rights could be suspended. Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki says Poland will not be intimidated by threats.
Odrzucam język gróźb, pogróżek I wymuszeń.
I reject the language of threats and fait accompli. I will not have EU politicians blackmail Poland. Blackmail must not be a method of policy conducted vis-à-vis certain member states. That is not what democracies do.
Morawiecki insists that Poland abides by EU treaties and brushes off comments about a possible Polexit. But he explains the Polish government's understanding of the rule of law.
Prawo unijne wyprzedza prawo krajowe.
EU law has primacy over national law within areas delegated by a member state. This principle is recognized in all member states. But the highest law in the EU is a constitution of a country. If an EU institution transgresses or infringes the delegated competences, then a member state must have tools to be able to react.
Morawiecki also criticises the European Court for making decisions behind closed doors.
EU competences have clear boundaries. We must not remain silent when those boundaries are breached. So we are saying yes to European universalism, but we say no to European centralism.
Poland joined the EU in 2004. Relations between the country and the EU reached a new low earlier this month. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
To Germany, where federal police are calling for temporary border controls at the German-Polish border. This comes as the number of migrants arriving via the so-called Belarus route is increasing sharply. Germany and other EU states accuse Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko of encouraging people to cross into the EU from its territory in a form of hybrid war.
In Europe, we are confronted with the fact that Lukashenko abuses refugees as tools to put pressure on European states. Lukashenko is nothing but the head of a state smuggler ring.
The deputy head of the German Federal Police Union in a letter is warning that only border controls could prevent a collapse at the border, as happened during the refugee crisis in 2015. German media says sometimes Polish authorities wade through migrants as they consider it better if asylum applications are made in Germany. EU foreign ministers on Monday discussed further economic sanctions on Belarus over the illegal migrant issue. Since August, Poland, Lithuania and Latvia have reported a surge in illegal border crossings from the former Soviet state. Staying in Germany, publishing company Axel Springer said on Monday it had fired the powerful chief editor of Germany's best-selling newspaper, Bild. This comes after revelations of alleged misconduct. Julian Reichelt was on temporary leave earlier this year after admitting having an affair with a woman on the staff. He was cleared of wrongdoing after a compliance investigation into allegations of abuse of power. Now Axel Springer said it had gained new knowledge about Reichelt's recent conduct. The company said he still failed to maintain a clear boundary between private and professional matters. It said Reichelt was also untruthful about this to the board. The dismissal comes a day after the New York Times published a report including details of Reichelt's alleged affair. In other news, so far this year, more than 18,000 migrants have succeeded in reaching the UK on board small boats. But for some who can't afford a seat on a boat, they will risk their lives by trying to jump aboard lorries heading to the UK. Despite the difficulties, young male migrants still see the Channel Tunnel as a viable route to the UK, and they're willing to risk injury or death to take it. NTD's Costemenes has a story.
In the northern French town of Calais, hundreds of migrants are looking for a way to the UK. Most of them are young men from Eastern Africa and the Middle East. While those with some money can pay to be smuggled across the channel in flimsy, overcrowded boats, the ones who can't afford it have to chance jumping onto one of the lorries destined for the UK. They wait by a roundabout. When the lorries slow down, they will try to jump on. Lorry jumping is dangerous. Some injure themselves, sometimes breaking limbs.
There
are some places that are strategical to migrants for crossing attempts, but there are many police forces there, so it's very complicated and very dangerous. We had a young person that died 2 weeks ago.
The truck drivers are used to the jump attempts. They check that no one enters their truck, honk at the men, or stop to tell them they're not going to the UK. The police patrols come often too, sirens blaring to deter the men. Even if a migrant succeeds in his jump, there are more challenges ahead.
It became very difficult to cross the channel on a truck. There are scanners now, dogs, border officers everywhere in Calais.
Some find themselves in serious danger. Refugee advocacy groups report calls for help from migrants in refrigerated trucks, saying they're running out of air or are about to die from hypothermia.
We receive many phone calls. When they call us in case of a problem, we can alert the emergency rescue services or the Coast Guards or the NGO Utopia. Utopia takes care of people who fall in their attempt to cross the channel and are at risk of hypothermia.
Despite all these dangers and fails, many migrants are not giving up. Their days in Calais can be summarized as have breakfast, go to the roundabout, lunch, go back to the roundabout, dinner, then maybe back to the roundabout again. Costemenes, NTD News.
The comfy casual trend is booming. Many professionals got used to wearing loungewear as they worked from home in the lockdown. And now ties and high heels are out as they update their wardrobes and return to the office. This report comes from NTD's Eddie Aiken.
Blanca Lorca used to wear high heels and fitted clothes to the office, but the pandemic lockdown transformed her style sense and shopping habits. After months working from her Madrid apartment, she's going for a new look as she returns to the office 3 days a week.
I look for clothes that will last for some time and won't go out of fashion, and that can be worn at work or to go out and have a drink, that I can wear for everything.
The focus on comfort has spurred a new desire for versatile clothing, fashion that is appropriate for the office but relaxed enough for kitchen table teleconferences. The trend also includes men's fashion. Department store El Corte Inglés in Spain said demand for comfortable office wear surged over the summer.
The way men dress has adapted and they are adding new clothes that were unthinkable until now. For example, we would never find sweatshirts in a classic office style. However, nowadays something like this could be worn to go to the office.
Big brands are paying attention, and the trend is global. Retailers such as Zara, Mango and H&M are featuring smart casual trousers, shirts and dresses on their websites.
We are not using ties, jackets or suits. There are sectors that are being penalized today, and it seems that the companies that will benefit are those that sell mixed products that are comfortable and casual, and you can also wear them to the office.
But even as demand recovers, retailers continue to grapple with disruptions to global supply chains. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
And finally, the British Museum will display what it says is the world's oldest surviving map of the stars as part of a major upcoming exhibition about the Stonehenge stone circle. The museum says the 3,600-year-old Nebra sky disk has never been displayed in the UK before. Two archaeologists questioned the authenticity of the 30-centimetre bronze object last year, suggesting it could be 1,000 years younger. The exhibition opens in February and runs through to July. It includes an extremely rare 3,000-year-old sun pendant described by the British Museum as the most significant piece of Bronze Age gold ever found in Britain. The exhibition aims to share a wider history of the mythology surrounding Stonehenge with hundreds of artifacts on display. That's the news for today. Have a good evening. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.